Hello everybody, Levi Clay here, and I'm back again to do something that you guys have been asking me to do for a long time, something I vowed that I would never do again. But I guess in celebration of the end of the year, because of course as I record this it is New Year's Eve, and I'm going to try and post this today for you guys, I got angry about something, so I wanted to make a rage time video. So I'm doing this for you guys. Now if you want to do something for me in return, well, I've got a special offer on my Patreon page at the moment. You can get your first month on any of my tiers for 50% off if you use the code New Year. That's New Year, all caps. New Year, New You. Come and join us for our weekly guided practice routines. You can even get private lessons with me over there, 50% off. That's a deal. And all the transcriptions, ear training videos, ton of content. I'm sure you will enjoy it. Check out the link in the description. Anyway, so what am I in a rage about today? Well, some of you may have seen over the last couple of weeks or months that I've been talking about covering some Bach stuff on my YouTube channel. Now, Bach was very important in my formative years as a music student because I would work on a lot of music notation. I would work on reading a lot of Bach's music. And in particular, I was always very drawn to the two-part inventions. So I decided what I wanted to do was I wanted to arrange all 15 of Bach's two-part inventions for two guitars. And what I noticed when I watched people play these online is they would play them wrong. And they wouldn't realize they were playing them wrong, but they would sound very muddy. And the reason for this is the guitar is actually a transposing instrument. What that means is when you're reading music notation for a transposing instrument, you read a note, you play the note, but that's actually it's not concert pitch. So like a saxophone is a transposing instrument, or a trumpet is a transposing instrument. They're in B flat. The guitar is a transposing instrument, but it's in C. It's still, it feels like it's not a transposing instrument, but it transposes by an octave. So what that means is that when you read a middle C in standard notation, when we read that on the guitar, it actually sounds, when we play it, an octave lower than middle C should sound. If you play middle C on the piano, treble clef, it's going to sound a certain way. When you play that same note on the guitar, you'll be an octave lower. So the guitar is a transposing instrument. And what that means is that when you are working on standard notation for something that wasn't written for the guitar, you actually have to jump everything up an octave. And that's why people are playing these two-part inventions incorrectly on YouTube, because they've not taken that into consideration. So you've got the left and right hand parts playing together, but they're essentially overlapping each other. So there's no space between the parts, and they're not allowed to breathe or interact with each other in any way. Sometimes they end up playing the same note at the same time. And of course, that was never the intention of Bach's compositions. Anyway, so that annoyed me to a little bit, to a degree, but I figured it's fine. I'm going to put out a book and it will be perfect. It will be flawless. So I worked on all 15 of these inventions. I've arranged them. They are all very playable. I put a lot of time into them. I'm very happy with how they've come out, and I can't wait to get around to recording them for you guys in the new year. I've got a special guitar coming for them because you'll see when the book comes out. But yeah, lots and lots of work. And then it occurred to me, oh, hang on a minute. I should probably check if there's any competition in this market. I should go on Amazon and make sure that nobody's already done this, because if somebody's already done this, do I necessarily want to compete with them? And then we come across this piece of trash. So this is the Bach Invention and Symphonias for Guitar by Stefan Grber. Now, Stefan, if you're watching this, hang up your bootstraps, sir, because the music industry does not need people like you in it. So Stefan has a few of these books available on Amazon, and I knew immediately what was going to happen when I opened this. You see, straight away, when you look at this, the transposing issue has happened. So all of his right-hand parts are an octave too low. And what you also notice is a lot of the fingerings for this aren't really all that playable, but he brags about it being in standard notation and tablature. It's almost like what he's done is just imported MIDI files into music notation software and then published it. And people are eating these up and buying them without putting any effort, any care, or any attention into whether or not the thing that you're publishing is accurate and representative of the music that it is that you're trying to show some appreciation for. This is the opposite of respectful to Bach and Bach's music, because in here, so he talks about the audio for the books in here, and he mentions that all of the audio is MIDI created. So he hasn't even gone to the effort of learning to play any of these because, of course, they can't be executed with the fingerings that he's done because he's put no effort into it. So he's just exported MIDI for you to copy, which again is ridiculous because these pieces aren't really metronomic in nature. They should flow with time, and you should be able to push and pull the time with these rather than playing with MIDI. But he goes on to say, sometimes they might sound a bit strange, especially the trills sound off, but they are a 100% perfect representation of the written score. Now, as somebody that's just spent several weeks arranging these to be wonderfully playable on the guitar, you are talking absolute crap, sir. Because the first thing that you will notice, aside from the transposing aspect, which so 50% of this book is trash. The first thing you'll notice when you look at guitar in bass clef and Bach's two-part inventions is that every single one of them goes below a low open E on the guitar. Every single one of them. It's occasionally just for one note. They'll play a D below that E, but some of them go down to a C. Some of them go all the way down to a B. So I'm going to be recording my left-hand parts on a 7-string guitar because I want them to be an actual accurate representation of the music that I'm doing. You haven't taken any of that into consideration in your transcriptions whatsoever. So somehow they are both 100% accurate to the notation, but also anytime the note would need to go lower than the notation, you've just put it up an octave. How is that showing any respect for the material? How is that showing any respect for the people that buy products? People that wanted to buy this book from you so they could learn about Bach's music. And the sad thing about this absolute waste of space is that he is doing books like this for so many different classical composers. And it's blatantly apparent that all you are doing, sir, is just downloading MIDI files from the internet and publishing them in books so you can make a little bit of money for yourself. It's absolutely disgusting. This book is trash. And once I'm done with this video, it'll be going in the bin. Do not buy this. It's crap. You, sir, are crap. Okay, so it got me thinking about another book, which I have a lot more respect for the author of this book. So this is Mel Bay's Complete Johnny Smith Approach to Guitar. Johnny Smith, one of the all-time great jazz guitar players, very influential jazz guitar player. I posted this on my Instagram to ask people why I might consider this to be one of the worst guitar education books. And it comes down to this idea of the guitar being a transposing instrument. So Johnny had some views when it came to notation of the guitar. Views that I don't agree with. You can see the logical consistency in his views, but unfortunately, we have to accept that we live in a system where, there's 100 years of guitar playing that exists. There is an accepted way of doing things. So whether you think that it's correct or not, you can't just try and change the entire system. It'd be like releasing a book without notation and without tab in it, but coming up with your own strange graphic notation and saying that this is the superior way of notating guitar. You're welcome to do it. But what you're actually doing is you're excluding a huge portion of the audience, i.e. anybody that reads tab or anybody that reads notation. So you might be thinking, oh, has he made a book here without guitar tab? Well, yeah, he's made a book without guitar tab, but that's fine. Most of my favourite books don't have guitar tab in. I can read music, it's totally fine. That's not my issue with this. And I want to be really, really clear. The content of this book is excellent. The material that he works with is excellent. Johnny and I actually had things in common. We both teach a 3-position based system. So, I have nothing but positive things to say about Johnny's music, but evidently he was a stubborn motherfucker. Because the problem with this book is he's acknowledged that the guitar is a transposing instrument, but he has decided that the solution to that is for it to not be a transposing instrument. And he writes everything on the grand staff like it's the piano. Now, he talks about it at the start of the book. He talks about why he likes to write things on grand staff. And I get it. I understand that the guitar is a transposing instrument, and by writing things on grand staff, you are able to read piano music and it will always be correct. You'll never make the foolish mistakes that idiots like Stefan Grber make. But the problem with this is twofold. Threefold actually. One, it requires that you're able to read bass clef. Now, most guitar players struggle reading treble clef, assuming that they will also be able to fluently read bass clef. My bass clef reading is relatively weak and I play piano, okay? So there's that assumption. There's also the assumption that when it comes to looking at lines, he has some lines in here. Let me pull up one of the lines. So yeah, right in the start of the book, he bounces here between some bass clef and treble clef, and then back to bass clef for reading. And he says that, actually, he does say that will be an actual pitch. Many composers prefer to write the guitar in this way. No, they don't. No one writes in this way. The problem with this is you have to remember that when you're working on this and you do go from reading bass clef to treble clef, you have to think like Johnny Smith. So you have to say, oh, this is treble clef, but it's also not transposing. So I have to read this in treble clef, but I also have to play it up an octave from where I would normally read this if I was reading treble clef on the guitar, the way everybody has read notation on the guitar for forever, which is so unbelievably silly and something that I can't really get behind. And then there's the third consideration. The third reason that I'd say the book fails massively, because everything is notated in grand staff, everything takes up twice as much space as it needs to. So you end up with a book that's about 250 pages long, when you could get this same material in a book that would be 100 and something pages long. And that's such a shame. And okay, I understand this book was written a long time ago. I think it was written in 1980. The copyright is 1980. It may have even been published before that. It might be a second edition. But the point is, the book is older than I am. But this is no criticism towards Johnny. I really do mean that. This is a criticism towards Mel Bay. It's 2024, guys. You have to be able to look at something like this and say, Johnny had some ideas about music notation. He presented those ideas to the world. They didn't catch on. We didn't go with it. And therefore, this is not the way that we notate guitar anymore. Certainly not in 2024. Maybe we should put a little bit of time into reauthoring this book so it's presentable to modern musicians in the way that modern musicians read. Because unfortunately, like I say, content in this book is wonderful, but the method of presentation of the content is so bad that it's going to stop people from being able to really engage with the content in the same way that if it had notation in the way that it was standardly read by guitar players, or of course tablature, which I'm a big believer in. Like I say, I myself can read music, but I'm never going to be anti-tablature because tablature is a system of notation that allows more people to engage with content. So that's good for me as somebody that produces content. More people can engage with it, but also it's good for people that want to consume content. It's not shutting people out and saying, oh, what's that? You pleb? You can't read music? You're not welcome to read my book. You want to make your material as far-reaching as possible, so it's as inclusive as possible to people. And Johnny Smith's book, it's like he takes all of the things that are problematic about books that don't have tablature in it, and then makes it one step harder, so he's snobby towards people that can actually read music notation, and says, oh, what's that? You're a fluent reader on the guitar? Well, I'm sorry, now you're going to need to read in treble and bass clef at the same time, and anytime you do read in treble clef, you're going to have to transpose it down an octave. Up an octave, down an octave, up an octave, up an octave, down an octave. I don't fucking know. So this one is a real shame. But like I say, Johnny Smith, incredible legacy on the guitar. So both as a designer of instruments and a player of instruments and as an educator. So nothing bad to say about Johnny as a player. Go and listen to him. Very important name in jazz guitar. But Mel Bay, please do something about this book. Because people are currently paying £25, which is what, $30? It's probably $35 in the States. Oh, sorry, $40 for this book in the States. It could be half of that, and you could be spreading wonderful information to people for half of the cost. Absolute travesty. Feels good to let that out of my system. What do you think, though? What do you think are some of the worst guitar books ever published? I've had bugbears in the past with books like Steve Vai's theory book of ideology, which is supposed to be a theory book for absolute beginners. And actually, it's just an opportunity for Steve to show off how much he knows about things by including clefs in that, talking, I guess to a degree, talking about some of the concepts that I've talked about here, i.e. that the guitar is a transposing instrument and treble clef is a thing which we read in all of the time. Bass clef is a thing which we read in some of the time. Alto clef and tenor clef do absolutely come up if you play viola in particular. There are definitely instruments that deal in alto and viola clefs. But Steve presents a bunch of other clefs that I can honestly say I've never seen before. And on the one hand, let me be clear about this, I'm not saying, how dare you show me something that I'm unaware of? I want to learn about things that I'm unaware of. But as a teacher, I understand that when something is made for a beginner, it should probably contain things that beginners need to know in it, not something that somebody who's been studying music in depth for over 20 years of his life was unaware of. That's a book for advanced students. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent. So tell me some of the books that have disappointed you or products that have disappointed you. I'm happy to read about them in the comments and share my stories if I have those. One more time, I am running a promo on my Patreon page where you can get 50% off your first month using the code New Year. So go and grab yourself some some of my content over on Patreon, or check out the links in the description where you can get access to my top 10 guitar transcriptions from my YouTube channel, or my piano sponsored link that will get you a 30-day free trial to piano. There's lots of ways you can support the channel, or just by sharing the video. I'm going to stop talking now because apparently I've lost the ability to do so. Much love. Laters.